What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the WiseTake NBA DFS Early Look CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013, and I, of course, am from the WiseTake Nation, which you can find on all the social media platforms listed below or directly at WiseTake.com if you're looking to take your DFS game to the next level. We're a premium DFS content provider as well as a DFS community designed to help make you a better DFS player. Projections, cheat sheets, core plays, pre-lock live stream, which we start 45 minutes prior to lock, take you up to lock to make sure you have as much news as possible. And you can try it all for $2.50. That's all it costs for NBA Day Pass. So go check us out. Aside from that, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Please subscribe, hit the notifications bell. You found the right place for free DFS content as well, right here, regardless of the platform that you are watching or listening on. Hit the like button if you haven't already. The likes really help us out, allow us to continue to put out the free content on the regular, which we like to do, to keep in touch with the YouTube, Podbean, iTunes nations. That being said, we've got a smaller slate to break down for Thursday. We're going to go game by game as we always do. I got FanDuel and DraftKings both pulled up on the screen so we can kind of really see if there's any site-specific plays and really check this thing out. That being said, we're going to start it off with Utah and Atlanta. Let's pull up everybody right quick. There we go. It's a back-to-back for Atlanta. We know that. Trae Young, 9-3 on DraftKings seems pretty cheap. I know that his upside has been hit a little bit. Maybe that's from Capella taking more of an alpha role or just him trying to trust his teammates. I'm not sure. But we've seen the usage dip a little bit. But 9-3 is a little bit too cheap, I think, for Trae Young on DraftKings. On FanDuel at 10-5, it's about appropriate. On DraftKings, you get potential double-double bonuses. You get the extra little something for three-pointers. So definitely a better DraftKings play at this point. Capella's fine. Gobert, pretty good defender down low. And again, it's a back-to-back. We'll see if he sits. He's been dealing with plantar fasciitis this season. Donovan Mitchell on both sides seems kind of cheap. This is a pace-up spot against Atlanta, who's not very good defensively. If this game was in Utah, I'd be a lot more worried about the blowout. Utah very good at home, but this game is in Atlanta. We know that Atlanta's got some of the best clubs out there from what we hear, right? We always see the hangovers. Ask James Harden about what happens when he goes to Atlanta. Ask Lou Will what happens when he goes to Atlanta. However, with COVID going on, maybe it's a little more toned down. But I do like Donovan Mitchell. Mike Conley, obviously, in play. John Collins is having himself a night. He's only $6,900 on FanDuel. Seems pretty cheap. I would imagine to be popular, especially with DeAndre Hunter expected to still be out. Jordan Clarkson's only $5K on FanDuel, $5,600 on DraftKings. It's a lot of fun playing him when Donovan Mitchell's out. But unfortunately, we just can't really trust the production when he's in. I do like him in this particular spot because I think $5K on FanDuel is pretty cheap. Obviously, we've got Kevin Huerter, who had a big game, who could provide some value for us on FanDuel. Again, DraftKings 5-5. So a couple site-specific plays there that we see right out the gate. And then, of course, Cam Reddish is pretty cheap on both sites. Again, someone that's getting big minutes. I know he hasn't done a whole ton, but he is getting the big minutes. We can't consider him. But I think the guys up top are obviously a little bit more appealing. Easy on the eyes, if you will. Golden State and Dallas. It's a back-to-back for Dallas as well. Luka Doncic, it's a very good spot. Golden State not very good defensively from the wings, the guards, whatever you want to call it. So I'm good with getting some exposure to Luka. He's expensive on both sides, but he's obviously one of the best in the game, and he's smashing against Atlanta. Steph Curry coming off an awesome game. It's a shame, man. We had a ton of Steph Curry the other night, but not enough Van Vliet, and that ended up being a big difference. But just a waste of a Steph Curry spot. Curry went nuts against Boston, went for 69 FanDuel points and 70-something DraftKings points, whatever, what have you. But he's in a pretty good spot once again. We'll see if Porzingis plays on a back-to-back. If not, that's going to increase the ownership of Luka, and for good reason. We expect the usage to be higher, a lot higher. So we'll check the status of Porzingis on the back-to-back. If he does play, it's not a bad spot for him, though. Back-to-backs worry me with a big man like him. I don't mind getting some exposure to Wiggins. Draymond's price has finally come up a little bit on FanDuel, where he's 5'8". 5'2" on DraftKings is still within range, especially if Porzingis does sit. If Porzingis is in, you always have to worry about the foul trouble issue. But then again, Golden State has no center. So being that they have no center, Draymond should be looking at some pretty big minutes at the 5, assuming he can stay out of foul trouble. Remember, Looney got hurt. So Golden State is a team that's a little bit thin right now, and they're going to play small. You're going to see some small ball. That being said, We could see Kelly Oubre's minutes get increased just in general. It wasn't the case against Boston, but he did get into some foul trouble. And then there's Juan Toscano-Anderson, who was a big benefactor from Looney getting hurt. He started the second half and ended up getting 26 minutes. I think we have to consider him as well. Though if you look at his box score, he was a little scoring dependent, right? Didn't do a whole ton with the peripheral. So if it becomes chalky, we want to watch out for that. Eric Paschal, FanDuel. Did FanDuel really move him to center? Did FanDuel really move Paschal to center? So he didn't play a ton against Boston. I'm curious to see what his ownership looks like. He's 4,500 on DraftKings and FanDuel. I'm curious to see what his ownership ends up looking like. If he ends up low owned, then it's going to be worth taking some shots, right? But if he ends up popular, it didn't work out so well the last time. But yeah, these are all guys that we're going to have to sift through. Definitely the Golden State side is going to be really thin, especially they got no centers. So they're going to be trying different people out at the 5, trying to force some small ball. We'll see what they do. Dallas could always bring in Mr. Bobanovic and just destroy everything. But, probably not the likely outcome there, right? With Powell and Maxi Kleber and all these guys back. But nonetheless, it's an interesting game, and I would assume that the Golden State situation, figuring that out, whether it be going with the chalkier players or going with the lower-owned pivots, is going to play a pivotal role, if you will, on the slate. Moving on, we've got Portland and Philly. Philly also on a back-to-back. Joel Embiid coming off a smash. He was just going nuts. Damian Lillard is actually questionable right now with an abdominal injury. Damian Lillard on FanDuel, way too cheap at 9.6. Way too cheap at 9.6. If he does play without McCollum, I'm ready to lock and load, at least as of now. If he sits, that's going to open up some value, but it's also going to make this team very scary. So keep an eye out for what happens with that. Obviously, everybody on this team would get a massive usage boost, you would think, particularly Anthony Simons, we would assume would start at the point guard role. We would also see, what's his name? Gary Trent, whose prices come up for good reason. See an extended role, Carmelo Anthony, Robert Covington, and more importantly, I think Enes Kanter, who, if you guys remember on the Christmas slate, I think it was 2 years ago, just went nuts against Embiid, absolutely destroyed him. So I'm interested in Kanter for sure, regardless, but maybe even more so if Dame is in. The issue is if Dame is out, does Portland hang around? Portland is not that great of a team without McCollum. I mean, in general, honestly, I don't think they're that great of a team at all. But you take away McCollum and then you take away potentially Dame, they're in trouble. So we could be sticking to value. I would think guys like Anthony Simons in them are going to play in a blowout anyway. But Portland, definitely a team to keep an eye on. Again, even if Dame is in, him and Kanter look solid. And we'll check the status of Jones Jr., but we know Nasir Little's out again. So Melo and all these guys who got extended run, who had a little bit more usage, would be definitely in play yet again. Joel Embiid is in a good spot, smashed against Charlotte. Simmons is okay. Don't love the price on FanDuel, but DraftKings is fairly friendly. And, of course, Tobias Harris is in a decent spot. But it's really the Portland side that I think we're kind of locked into, especially if we do get that injury news with Dame being out or something like that. Houston and Memphis is a back-to-back for Houston. Christian Wood headlining Houston. I'd be willing to go back to Wood against Memphis. We've seen, Sabonis just completely destroy these guys. Oladipo, I think I'm pretty sure they said is probably not. Yeah, here we go. Oladipo's probably not going to play on the back-to-back against Memphis. So we'll see what happens because we know John Wall is already. So John Wall, I would assume John Wall will play. If he's out for rest on Wednesday, he's probably going to play Thursday. So it's a John Wall day. And I will load the fuck up on John Wall. As much as I love John Morant is not a good defender. We've seen point guards just explode against him since he's been in the league. So John Wall is somebody I'll definitely want to lock into, assuming he's in, assuming Depot is out, as mentioned. Speaking of John Morant, offensively, he could definitely hold his own. So I'm good with John Morant on the other side in tournaments, of course. And then, of course, Eric Gordon with John Wall there. Gordon had himself a pretty good game. The prices come up on FanDuel. And on DraftKings, where is he? 5.8 on DraftKings. It's still within reach. He's a little scoring dependent, which is always scary, especially on a back-to-back, but someone that we would expect to continue his increased usage at the moment. But Christian Wood, John Wall are the primaries here, with Gordon falling in third. And the Memphis side is a little strange, right? You got Gorgie Dieng and Tillman kind of doing their back-and-forth thing. Dylan Brooks is still way too cheap on FanDuel. I don't mind taking some shots on him. Had a big game against Indiana, but another one who's been fairly scoring dependent. And, of course, the Anthony Melton's been awesome. He's been really good. Not getting a ton of minutes, but still putting up fantasy points. That's kind of what he does. So Melton is 5K and 5.2 on the respective sites. That's a little expensive for a player coming off the bench whose minutes are not guaranteed by any stretch, meaning you don't know the range of outcomes and minutes. But some interesting plays nonetheless. But John Wall, for sure, looks like a lock and load for me today. Finally, Denver and the Lakers. So, yeah, Jokic could do his thing. LeBron and AD are questionable. They're always questionable. That's going to happen. If one of them sits, load up on the other. We know how that works. This game is in LA, so you don't get Denver's altitude advantage. Obviously, Jokic is looking like the top stud on the slate from what I've seen. I mean, Dame on FanDuel, you could argue, or with Dame, you could argue, right, if he plays. But either way, Jokic is right up there. Expensive, but probably worth the money at this point. Anthony Davis on FanDuel at 9.7. Anytime he's under 10, I'm interested. Even though he's kind of earned this reduced role, I'm still interested. I think Jamal Murray is a very good tournament play as well, especially on DraftKings where he's 6'8". And then, of course, Michael Porter Jr., man, Tournament City. This game got canceled the other night. That was a shame. A lot of people got fucked. But I think he's ready to kind of come out. 5.5 on FanDuel is too cheap. 6-1 on DraftKings, I'll give you that. It's kind of where it should be, but a little too cheap on FanDuel. And then, of course, Gary Harris and PJ Dozier are still out. We can consider Monte Morris for value for Denver. Got 25 minutes against Utah. Was okay, but the price is low enough. We could definitely jump in. How much is he on? No, it's the wrong Morris. Almost got me there. 4.2 on DraftKings, still pretty good value-wise. Paul Millsap's okay. Will Barton, right? He's another one that we kind of expect to benefit from the absence of players. He got 37 minutes against Utah when Gary Harris got hurt. So definitely another player we can kind of lock in. It's scary. We're in the same situation. It's the only game playing at 10 o'clock all by itself. It was in that situation 9 o'clock against Detroit. The game got canceled. These players were heavily owned. So we'll see what happens. But I'm going back to the well. If people are going to be afraid to go back to Denver, I mean, FanDuel and DraftKings, at the end of the day, they did the right thing and they refunded the entry fees of people who play those players. And that being said, if we feel protected, why not fucking lock and load again? So we'll see what other people do. I have a feeling at least some people will back off, partially because the prices have come up on some of these guys, and partially because they're just not going to want to deal with games with the late night hammer of a team whose last game was just canceled. So I'll leave it at that. Pretty good little 5-game slate. We'll see what kind of news breaks out during the day. As always, we got to be ready to react. If you're a member of the WiseTake Nation, monthly member or higher, you get access to our Slack chat. We have injury updates and feeds and all that good stuff in there. But John Wall is looking like a solid option. Again, we're assuming that Wall's going to play on this back-to-back, and because Oladipo, they had said probably won't. And other than that, we got to react to the news and, be ready to make the pivots. NBA is all about reaction. It's all about reacting. If you're a member at WiseTake.com, if you got a day pass, make sure you check out our MME workshops. They're called the MME Blueprint. I've done 2 now. The first one was really like an instructional process. Like, here's my process, start to finish. And the second one was going over late swap, showing how to upload our projections into certain optimizers like Roto Grinders, for instance, Lineup HQ. So make sure you go check it out if you're a member. We encourage everyone to play MME. You don't have to. It's not the only way to play. For years, we've been successful building teams by hand. We still build teams from hand from time to time, but the MME is really a game changer for anyone who hasn't tried it. It doesn't guarantee you're going to win. It still takes skill. It still takes work. But it helps to know what you're doing, and it's a lot of fun. So I recommend you try it. That being said, leave me some comments. We appreciate the comments, and I'll try to respond to as many as I can. Maybe even pick some to go over on the show. And hit the like button. Likes really help us out, like I said. For myself, the entire WiseTake Nation, as always, good luck.